So recently I've gotten a lot of messages from wrestlers that are getting into jiu-jitsu for the very first time, and they know that I wrestled, and so they've sent me a few messages asking, Chewy, what is something that would make the transition from wrestling to jiu-jitsu smoother? And so there's a lot of things that I could talk about, but there's one particular mindset that a lot of wrestlers, and it's not just wrestlers, it's people from all sort of different sports and other activities that they bring into jiu-jitsu. It's a really dangerous and destructive mindset if you're wanting to get good at jiu-jitsu. And so I'll share an idea with you. And again, we're talking about wrestling to jiu-jitsu, but you could use this in a myriad of different areas in your life, as you'll see. But if you've been watching the videos long enough, or if you read my emails or anything like that, you probably know that I'm a fan of Joseph Campbell's work. I really like his stuff. I started reading it years and years ago, and I've got a bunch of his books over here and some of his audio programs. And I love, he's got some videos. If you've never watched his stuff, you can go watch The Power of Myth with Bill Moyers. It's really easy. You can just put it in YouTube and find it. But I like his way of explaining some of the hidden symbols behind mythological stories and the meanings that they may be trying to share to us. And I think it's been useful to me. And there's one particular symbol that gets used over and over again in different stories that I really like for myself. It's been helpful to me. And that is the snake shedding its skin. And so you can think of a snake, it's growing, it's changing, right? And at some point, the skin that it has around it is no longer adequate for it. And so then it has to shed the skin and make room for what it's going to do later on and continue to grow, right? Well, for us, obviously our skin doesn't work that way as humans, but there's our proverbial skin, our identity of ourselves. And that a lot of times gets in the way because we have to shed the thing from time to time. Especially as we get older, we start to realize this. We have to become different people and we have to do different things and we have to shed our identity of who we think we are numerous times throughout our lifetime, right? And a lot of times what happens is when people come in from areas that they were good at something, especially if they're good at something, they become attached to that skin or that identity of themselves. I know this was true for me getting into jiu-jitsu from wrestling because when I was a wrestler, I wasn't a great wrestler, but I was good enough to win some tournaments, get some gold medals and, silver medals and bronze medals. I had lots of the, when you win the tournament, you get your little bracket, your big paper bracket, had several of those, and I was very proud of what I did in wrestling. And so when I got into jiu-jitsu, I identified as a wrestler. Quick sort of side tangent, I remember the last day of school before for the state tournament. I remember me and my best friend. I was a 189 pounder. He was a 112 pounder, small guy. I remember he and I both got this silly idea that we were going to come into the school the next day and wear all of our medals that we'd accumulated over wrestling. It's a lot of medals, so we're sitting around and we have all these medals around our neck and the medals are clanging together. So when we were walking down the hallway, we sounded like a couple of cows going out to pasture. And I think I got a crick in my neck leading up to the competition the next day because it was hanging on my neck for the whole time. But getting back to it again, I was really happy and proud of what I had done, and I was very attached to my identity, right? I was a wrestler. So when I got into jiu-jitsu, I remember sort of wanting to learn the top game stuff, but I really wanted nothing to do with the guard. I didn't want it. It wasn't a wrestler thing. Wrestling, I could still take the guy down and get to side control. That was still kind of wrestling. But being on my back, I don't want to do that. It sort of messed with me. I didn't like it. And that really hindered my growth early on. Now, about 6 months, 8 months into it, I eventually sort of began to let go of that identity and started to play off my back more. It was partly because I wanted to learn and partly because my coach forced me to do it. So, it's a little bit of both. And my jiu-jitsu became a lot better because of it. And this is one of the things that I see as a coach where a lot of wrestlers come into the gym and they love the fact that they're good at takedowns. They love the fact that they can get on top of people. And then they don't really want to really learn the guard, right? They don't want to learn how to play off their back and they don't want to do those things. I think this is one of the things that I have a wrestler right now in my gym who's, he's a really good wrestler. He's a college wrestling champion, whatever. And he's smart enough not to do this, right? He's playing guard and he's learning how to, do leg locks and all kinds of unwrestly type stuff, right? And he's learning how to do these things and he's going to be better because of it. And again, I've seen other people, not even wrestling related. I've seen people come in who are good athletes from other sports like football and things like that. And again, they come into the gym and they have this identity that I'm this tough football player. I'm really good at this thing or whatever it might be. And then you come in and you have to sort of be at the bottom again. You have to be not so good at something. And sometimes it's very hard for people. And so again, if there was one piece of advice that I could give to a wrestler coming into jiu-jitsu, it's be ready to shed that skin of the identity that you are a wrestler. You're not a wrestler anymore. When you're in a jiu-jitsu room, you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner, you're a grappler. It would be like a jiu-jitsu practitioner who maybe a kid grew up doing jiu-jitsu, and then in high school he decided to go to wrestling, and then said, no, I'm not a wrestler, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. No. When you're in the wrestling room, you're a wrestler. When you're in the jiu-jitsu room, you're doing jiu-jitsu. You're a grappler, and that's the way it works. And so for you guys that are getting into jiu-jitsu from wrestling, excited to have you. I feel like I'm seeing more and more wrestlers. I really think that's going to be one of the new trends. I'm seeing more and more really good wrestlers getting into jiu-jitsu, which is going to be fun to see how things change over time with that and how it affects the style of training in jiu-jitsu. But that said, make sure that if you want to make that transition smooth, be open to learning jiu-jitsu, not just attaching to your wrestler identity, wanting to fight for takedowns and want nothing to do with anything else. So just an idea to chew on. Hopefully that's helpful to you guys, and I'll talk to you next time.